Hello, everyone. Today's guest has spent over 25 years reshaping what it means to be a real estate broker in the American South. She's the founder of the Grace Frank Group, and she's not your typical agent. Grace holds an MBA with a marketing emphasis, a background in corporate strategy consulting at VP and president level, and has personally facilitated over $150 million in 1,000 exchange transactions. Her brokerage, named as Chattanooga, is named as Chattanooga's Best Residential Real Estate Team in 2025. Best Commercial Real Estate Agent in 2023 is an award she's received herself. And right now, she's marketing one of the most extraordinary properties in the southeastern United States. $27.5 million, 950-acre private river kingdom. Grace Frank, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Lovely having you. And I guess I'll just kind of jump straight into it in terms of maybe finding out a little bit more about your background and your journey so far, Grace, because you obviously come with a lot of experience. So you came into the real estate with an MBA and a corporate strategy career. How
I
did that,
did.
very good. And how
Mhm.
did that unconventional path shape the way you run the Grace Frank Group today?
Well, having been in corporate America in, VP levels of strategy development for large corporations, it gave me upfront, I was negotiating $100 million deals for healthcare, um, and at a very young age. So I believe that my experience in corporate America really helped shape my expertise in terms of negotiations and strategy development in contracts. But it also shaped my understanding of being a great leader, and when you delegate and when you don't delegate, and, you know, creating the masterful deal. And also with my MBA in marketing, it really has helped me position myself as well as my properties that I represent in a very unique way. For example, you were talking about what I call the Tennessee River Jewel, that's over 950 acres with 6 miles of Tennessee River frontage. We've done direct mail to high end celebrities, high end corporations, just trying to really take a unique strategy of positioning it as a legacy project, whether it's a corporation or a high end celebrity that's looking for their legacy project.
Very impressive. I mean, I would love to find out a bit more about who these high-end celebrities are, but I'm sure that's confidential. So we'll probably just kind of keep cracking on and
Well, a
just kind
lot of them have Tennessee roots, so that might give you some understanding of some of them that we've marketed to.
I'm definitely gonna Google that afterwards. And I guess like in terms of just the general market outlook in Chattanooga at the moment, right? So we went from like an 18-day average days on market during the pandemic frenzy to about, I think it's about, so I was last checking, it's around 45 to 56 days
It is.
currently.
Yeah.
And how do you manage seller expectations when so many still think it's 2021?
Well, up front, when we're going to evaluate the property and talk about pricing, because that usually comes up very early in the conversation. I always try to give clients a range of a price. And recently, what I have been advising them is that we're not in a seller's market anymore. There's some submarkets that are definitely a buyer's market. There's some markets that are kind of like on the fence between a buyer and a seller's market. And there's still some markets in our area that are a seller's market because of the high demand and the low amount of inventory. But pricing is really, really crucial right now. The perception of something being overpriced or the perception of something staying on the market long, there's a big question why. We still have the concept that things should go off the market very quickly, and that's just not necessarily the case when you don't have the same amount of buyers looking as there were during the pandemic and moving out of other states, coming to Tennessee because we have one of the best remote work environments that exist in the whole country based on our high gig fiber optic system that we have, even in remote areas. Like I have a farm 25, 30 minutes from downtown, and we have high speed fiber optics there. So the whole area having such high speed fiber optics, allowing people to work remotely efficiently, still gives us a high demand, but there's not the pent up demand that there was during, the COVID epidemic. So, um, managing clients' expectations is everything.
No, I completely agree. And I was actually gonna kind of bring us on to the subject of the gig city, so I'm glad that you
Yeah,
brought it up
yeah.
yourself. And then a bit on that. So obviously you've got this kind of urban population that's very
Hmm.
tech savvy. Have you kind of seen with the advent of AI and everything, are you kind of seeing the impact of that on the real estate sector? So if we were to look inwards instead of like looking at your client base, how's that kind of panning out for the real estate sector at large?
Well, I'm a big advocate of AI. I use it every day. To me, it's my one of my best tools. I think it would be difficult to replace a real estate agent in as totally using an AI to transact a deal. So I see it as a big tool for real estate. I use it a lot. I'm a creative writer. I write children's books, but I love creative writing, and so I always kind of write the remarks, and then I'll take it through, AI just to kind of give me some ideas as to how I might reposition it a little bit. I've used AI when I'm dealing with a complex appraisal issue where I'm rebuttaling an appraisal. I've used it very effectively that way, and actually was able to keep the property under contract. Um, and so AI, in my opinion, is an amazing tool, and not getting involved with its use as a tool for your practice is really foolish. But do I think it can replace real estate agents? No. I think it can replace a lot of the mundane work. It can give a client an advantage of evaluating potential negotiation strategies. But at the end of the day, a really good negotiator that knows the area and understands it extensively is hard to beat.
No, I completely agreed, right? Like there's nothing like real life experience otherwise,
Yeah.
and that human touch as well.
Yeah, the
And then
human touch is very important, and we'll always have that. I mean, I would say 95% of my practice is therapy. Um, so, I think that the human touch aspect of just walking through people with negotiations. I have a client right now that I spent 3 hours at lunch with last week, has a very high end piece of property. And, their whole concept was, well, if I made this money, what would I do with it? And I was able to explain to her that the money that she's making right now, it's at the top of its value. And so taking that money and reinvesting it into another area where you can have additional appreciation, you're not at the top, you're able to take another 10 to 20% versus just because of inflation, you'd start to lose the value of the property because you're at the peak. You've made all the money you're going to make on it. So, those are really important conversations to have with people. And I think that's hard to get across unless you're talking to somebody eye to eye and really discussing and learning about somebody.
no, I mean completely agreed. And I guess like you said, it is all about how do you enable those conversations through the use of technology, right? And
Hmm.
that does kind of raise this whole question around, or something that I'm definitely more curious to understand around a better informed buyer concept. So do you think that because of the kind of data available there, like in terms of satellite imagery, flood modeling tools, Zillow estimates, are the buyers that you're seeing in the market now better informed than they used to be, maybe before kind of
Oh, totally. I mean, and what's really fascinating is that they have Googled the potential person on the other end of the
Oh,
transaction
wow.
and know more about them than probably the person knows themselves. And I find that very fascinating how they've Googled, got on their Facebook account, really tried to understand what that person's about so they really know what's going on with that person during the negotiation process. I find that very fascinating. And I also believe that estimates like Zillow estimates are not always actual factual because they take models, and so there's a lot of sub things that are going on, and that's how we really try to work at a value of a property is not just by, like a Z estimate or, some other type of estimate, but to really look at all the factors involved in it, that those type of estimates really don't do. Sometimes can be a challenge to work through, but I have not have a problem with that because I analyze values very extensively all the time. And so I don't have a difficult time having those consultations with somebody, not arguing with them, but saying, well, it states this, but let me show you these two or three aspects that change the value a little bit. So, um, they're good conversations to have and healthy conversations to have
Yeah.
with clients.
I guess, yeah, and it does come down to that point that we just touched upon earlier, right? That you still need that human in the loop to make sure that everything kind of dies down because I mean, that is key.
Oh,
Um,
it's totally. I mean, models can only do so much.
yeah,
But boots on the ground, evaluating things, knowing the market, walking the streets of that area, knowing little things that a research analytical process can't grasp, is crucial to really making a right decision.
agreed. And kind of rolling it back a little bit and bringing it to the people aspect, right? So what does your practice kind of currently look like, and how do you, like in terms of management of people, because you said leadership was something that was very important to you as well, right?
Yeah, so
Uh,
I have a team. Um, I I'm a very big producer myself. There's a lot of teams out there where the team captain or the team leader takes all of the volume and the income and shows it from their team members. I don't do that. My volume is my volume. I allow my team members to show their own volume. I feel that's very important. I think a lot of the team concepts are misleading and not empowering of agents. So, to me, to empower people to continually grow, they need to have their production, and I need to show my production. I don't want to be the face behind a bunch of people and not really producing myself. I think that's to walk your talk is very important. So my leadership is really crucial when you have a team, but I think also empowering team members to learn and grow is very important. So we, really try to work through that in terms of education with them. I have ongoing team meetings, but I also try to do a lot of education. I'm a big researcher, so early in the mornings, I'm always looking to see what's going on in real estate, what are the new trends. And if I see something really important or impactful, I'll email all the agents and say, this is something we really need to study and research, and you need to really become an expert in this area. I'm a very well knowledgeable agent in 1031 exchanges. I try to teach my other agents how important knowing and having that skill are because it's very complex and it's very important to be, it's like a chess game, and you need to be very strategic with 1031 exchanges in order to make it successful. So I try to teach agents skill sets that will set them apart from just the Joe Blow agent.
very well said. So apologies because I feel like I did mispronounce this and I said 1,000 exchanges.
Oh, 1031.
So what is 1031 exchange?
Well, it could be 1,000 exchanges, but it's a 1031 exchange.
Okay, cool. And then what is 1031 exchange? Because now
So it's
I'm
basically what you're doing is instead of paying taxes on a property that you're selling, it's called like a like kind exchange. So you're taking a current investment property and buying another investment property, and you're taking that potential tax issue and you're pushing it down the road so you don't have it. So you're buying another property in exchange for that current property so you don't have to take the capital gains. So, and people get very, when they say like kind, they think, well, if I'm going to buy a multifamily, I have to be selling a multifamily. That's not the case. You can sell multifamily and buy a farm. You can buy a franchise. You can buy a marina. Um, there's a lot of different broad areas of how you look at a like kind exchange and buying something and selling something. It doesn't have to be the same widget. It has to be an investment property, um, or an investment business, but there's a lot more flexibility in it than a lot of people think there is. But it's very time sensitive. Um, Once your property goes under contract to sell, um, once you close, within 45 days, you have to identify the properties that would potentially be exchanges. And then you have a total of 180 days to close from your closing time frame of your first property. So there's a lot of restraints on timing. I have clients, for example, we had one where we thought we were close to getting something under contract. We started looking and narrowing down the properties that we would be doing a 1031 exchange for, so we could actually put them under contract and start to do some of the due diligence before we even closed on the other property. So if there were some that could potentially fall out, we allowed that to happen. There's a lot of different ways to execute a 1031 exchange, and having somebody very knowledgeable about how to manage that is crucial in order to make it successful, because I've seen it be very unsuccessful because of a lack of understanding of the agent of how to manage and make that successful.
And what are the ramifications if you're not able to complete a deal in that time frame?
Oh, well, then you pay the taxes.
And you've got to pay the taxes. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Can be up to 35%.
Yes. Lose on that capital
A lot
gains
of
tax.
money to leave on the
Yeah.
table.
Completely agree. So, I mean, I guess shout out to you for saving so much money for your clients then. And have you ever been in a situation where you've kind of had to just pull the plug because you weren't able to complete an exchange? And what did that kind of teach you? Because I'm sure the deals that you've done.
There's been a couple, and then there's been a couple where I look back at them doing, I know a couple they probably should have not purchased and just purchased a few of the properties that made sense to purchase, and just pull, the rest of the money, used as, keeping the money and then just paying the taxes on that part, versus buying a property that was underperforming and became a challenge to manage over time. So knowing when to purchase and knowing when to pull back and accept that you're going to have some tax ramifications is also very important. And I try to be, my name is Grace Frank, so I try to be gracefully frank about, this may not be the best investment, and maybe you just need to take the tax consequences and do this transaction, but not do this other one, because I feel that it could actually become a challenge for an investment property in the future for you.
And I guess keeping on the kind of finance lens or just doing a bit of a deeper dive, with the current mortgage rates at around 6.5%, how are you kind of still pushing that family owned property lens and like basically saying that this is the market where you should buy multifamily homes? Because obviously with the mortgage rates.
Well, it's all about cap rates, and so being able to get a reasonable cap rate at 6.5 or 7 in a market like Nashville is unrealistic. It's still realistic in Chattanooga. It's
Mm-hmm.
very realistic in areas like Huntsville, Alabama. So it really depends on the market and where the cap rates are. You know, we used to be at a 12 cap and now we're at about a 6 to 8 cap, but that's still pretty good. Where Nashville's like a negative cap almost because they've had so much appreciation and value. So it's really a combination of income and value of the property and performance, which makes that work. Um, there's still a lot of people buying property, but when you're doing a 1031 exchange, a lot of times you're paying cash. And so I have a large 1031 exchange right now that I'm working on, and we're probably going to get properties at a 12 to 13 cap because she's paying cash and she has a better negotiation tool because she's paying cash. She can make it not contingent on appraisal. She can close quickly, and her due diligence can be a lot less. So, because there's a lot less restraints on what you have to do for a cash deal than you have to do for a lending deal. So, that's where it can get really fun and exciting is when you can, people are motivated to sell when they know they can have a cash deal. They don't have to can be concerned about the appraisal, and they're going to get their money quickly. They're not going to be sitting in 90 to 120 days of due diligence, but they're going to close in less than 30 days and they don't have to worry on appraisal. That talks.
Yeah, and is that the investment case then that you're making to your clients right now? That amazement and that excitement, or what is the
Yeah, I mean,
investment?
it's just, there's always a deal.
Yeah.
Um, you just have to work it and see what happens and what doesn't. But that's from an investment standpoint. On the investor side, well, I always take this approach with all of my clients. My grandfather taught me from a very young age, there's only one time you make your money, and it's when you buy. If you don't buy well, you can't sell well. So even first time home buyers, I really try to express to them that you need to look at this as an investment, not an emotional transaction, because it's going to be one of your biggest investments in your future. So you need to think of it as an investment, not an emotional transaction. And so when they take that approach from the very beginning, I mean, you can get emotionally caught up, but if you look at it as a business,
Mm-hmm.
even on your home, because that's how a lot of people have made their wealth is from their real estate, even the homes that they've owned. So real estate is an investment, whether it's your home or whatever it is, it's an investment in your future, and you need to look at it that way.
Yeah, and that does kind of beg the question for your landmark listing, right? So you touched on
Oh yeah,
generational.
my landmark listing, yeah.
Yes, the Tennessee River Jewel.
Yeah,
Let's
uh-huh.
talk through that. So 950 acres, 6 miles of Tennessee River, like you said, frontage at
The
27.
family worked on putting this together for over 40 years, piecing these lands together to make that happen. So it wasn't one land transaction that they purchased. They literally had to buy 4 different parcels to create this, and it took them over 40 years to create it.
And Grace, how do you market something like that? Like who's the buyer for
We
this?
market it nationally. We market regionally. We did a national press release. We do a lot of direct brochures with custom marketing pieces to high-end people. We targeted a lot of high-end celebrities. We targeted a lot of corporations. We've gotten interest from families that are like 4 or 5 generations where they're looking at this as their legacy project as a family. We've had corporations look at it. We've had large farms look at it. We've had developers look at it. So there's a lot of different ways to evaluate it. And the key is to target it to a lot of different target markets and kind of so right now we have a high-end corporation looking at it. We have a large family estate looking at it, and we have 3 developers looking at it.
Wow, amazing. Because I mean, I'm guessing that then there's also a whole aspect of the toll that this probably takes on you, right? Like, because it's not just a random house that you just get the keys for and then you get a viewer in and you do a viewing and then it's a deal closed. But then it's a lot of risk or kind of a lot of investment that you're putting into
Well, and
this
you know, that's true
project.
with every listing. You know, there's a lot of investment that goes into every listing, and a lot of people don't understand that. If you're going to list a property correctly, there's a lot of upfront costs that go into listing a property, but there's also a lot of strategy, and it's not just listing a property, it's an execution strategy, and I think we're very good with that. Um, and I think my background helps us with that, but we're very strong in social media. We're very strong in YouTube. We do a lot of videos. We do a lot of YouTube education around properties. Um, we do a lot of high-end print brochure media, direct mail. We target a lot. I mean, we do national, with this property, we did a national press release. We hit over 500 different press release sites. So you just never know where something's going to come from. So we have it on regular MLSs, we have it on custom MLSs, we have it on specific investor developer sites. Um, you just have to come up with a very strong strategy of different ways that you're going to market something. Um, and presentation is everything,
Yeah.
but we do a lot of calling too. You know, we call a lot of people, and we reach out to a lot of different people. And on this one, I called a lot of the 1031 exchange custodians across the country. You know, saying, hey, if you get a large 1031 exchange, here's a great 1031 exchange project for somebody. So you just reach out lots of different target markets to and allow that to kind of stick, and see what's going to stick and what's working. And so we have several right now that are highly interested in it.
And it's not like a word to mouth or word of mouth market anymore, right? So there's a lot of
No,
lead
it's not a
generation
word
and
of no.
yeah.
It's a lot of digital marketing. it's it's a very strategic approach anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's where the market's really kind of matured, right?
Oh, it is. I mean, digital marketing is everything. And when I'm looking to hire a new marketing director for my company, they have to have very strong digital marketing experience, because we do a lot of retargeting. We do a lot of very customized marketing digitally to attract market buyers in submarkets, sellers in submarkets. It's digital marketing is the name of the game.
No, completely agree. And maybe I do wanna again pivot a little bit towards your community service because I think we should talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, and what I have over here is actually amazing because you sit on the city of Chattanooga's form-based
I
code community.
did. That I'm not anymore. That you don't have a 3-year thing, but I was on that. I've sat on a lot of boards. I've sat on a lot of sustainability boards. I'm a big advocate of sustainability. I actually own a 40-acre organic farm where we have a lot of solar, rainwater catchment, permaculture. So I'm a big advocate of sustainability. So I've been on a lot of sustainability boards in our community. I give back to several different types of organizations. I do all of my giving anonymously. I like to be anonymous. I'm kind of like Georgia O'Keeffe. I don't put my name on stuff. I think it's more important to just quietly do things, and it always comes back, but it's not like I'm ringing my bell that I'm doing this. I believe in farmers. I do a lot with future farmers, sustainable farmers. I think that's a very important aspect for our communities. I also believe a lot in the homeless. I think that we need to really figure out a solution for the homeless population and bring back integrity to this group of people. And so if people have food and they have shelter, then they can flourish. If they don't have good nutrition and they don't feel secure in how they live, we will
Yeah.
never have a stable community.
No, I mean, very, very well put. And where I come from, we kind of go by the saying that if you are giving, then from your right hand, then your left hand shouldn't find out.
Yeah,
So,
that was, yeah.
and then so I'm not gonna kind of deep dive into you telling us
Yeah,
through,
I
but
mean, it's,
yeah,
it
it's
always comes back, but I think being quiet about what you do says a lot more than trying to, you know, tell people that you're doing this or you're doing that. I've always been more of a producer than a director. I like the behind the scenes, making things happen and not having people have to know that I'm doing it.
amazing. Well, I mean, that's really lovely to hear. And maybe I'll just ask one final thing. So someone who's just kind of waking up tomorrow to the world of real estate, right? And very interested in getting into it. What would your advice be in terms of how do they achieve the success that you've had with your crown jewels and your kind of brokerage, but then your community work as well? So a young person listening to this out there.
Well, there's nothing better than hard work and doing anything that you ask somebody else to do. If you're not willing to do it yourself, then you shouldn't ask somebody else to do it. So I've always been a hard worker. I've always been extremely ethical, and I've always had a high level of integrity, and I always focus on service. I've never focused on the money. I've never said, oh, I'm going to make this with this deal. I've always said, how do I create service with this client and allow them to be successful? And by doing that, I believe that you create success for yourself.
Well, we'll leave it at that then. And thank you so much, Grace, for
Oh,
joining
you're
us.
welcome.
It was lovely hearing from you and all the wisdom that you've imparted along the way. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
It was great to talk to you. Have a great day.
You
Bye
too.
bye.